probably heard dog trainers go on about consistency and why it matters, especially with reactive dogs, but they probably never really explained why. So I like to use this analogy of the forest. So this is going to give you a much better understanding about what we mean by consistency and why it matters. When we think about the forest and when we walk somewhere, if you walk along a track for a long time, there naturally will be a gap that forms where you walk along the same track. It becomes wider and wider over time. Like dog behavior, when a dog is repeating a behavior over and over again, it becomes more ingrained. Like this forest, the gap gets wider and it becomes more exposed. It becomes a really long-term habit. Just like dogs, they're reacting to dogs or reacting to cars or people. The more that they practice it, the more it becomes ingrained. When we are wanting to change behaviors, we want to act like it's a brand new forest. There is no pathway, so we have to make a track. Here, we have a very clear gap between the trees here. So it's a very easy track, and this has been practiced for a long time. And depending on how long your dog has practiced this, will depend on how wide this is. If we're wanting to change our dog's behavior and maybe perhaps change the path and we want to go another way, we're going to have to make a new track. But you can see it's going to be very thin for a while, so it's going to take a while to break up the gap between the trees. What can affect your progress here is a few different things. So your time, so how long your dog has practiced doing the behavior. Also your communication. So if you have family members that communicate differently with your dog, so sometimes they'll allow the dog to do the behavior or sometimes they won't. That's very mixed signals for your dog. Every time you're trying to practice the new behavior, but at the same time you then come back and circle back and allow them to use this path again. That then adds another line in your track. So that means that this track has then become deeper and wider, but this one has stayed the same. The other things that could affect it are boundaries. If you can't have any boundaries with your dog and hold them accountable for behaviors, how are you going to stop them from being able to react to things outside? If we're wanting to form new behaviors and we put a line in that we hold them accountable, but then the next time we allow them to react or be pushy in the house, we are widening this part of the track again. And then we have arousal / reactivity around the home. If we are wanting our dogs to stop reacting outside, but they're constantly allowed to run to the door and bark or bark at the window, we can't expect them to form new positive behaviors here if we're then cycling back and allowing them to react in the house. Things like crate training, so that when you can't watch them, you can give them somewhere to relax. You have a leash on in the house, and just holding them accountable in general, of going to the door to bark, counter surf, the leash is there to be able to interrupt those kinds of behaviors. It's also important to teach our dogs to switch off at home, so forced rest in their crate or on a bed, so that you can move around the house and they're not constantly following you. They can actually relax and switch off. If your dog isn't getting enough rest and sleep, that also affects how they operate. It's like a toddler running on no sleep. Eventually they're going to crash and burn, and then that again feeds into reactivity. Another thing that can impact your progress with reactivity is repeating your cues or commands. If we're having to constantly tell our dogs to sit, 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 and then they eventually listen, what we're teaching our dogs is that they can just ignore a cue for so many times, or we are rewarding for poor effort. This all affects arousal, which then again feeds into the reactivity pathway. If we can't get our dogs to listen to us when there are no distractions, even at home, or when there's no arousal, we can't then expect them to listen in more difficult situations, or even listen to us when we're saying, no, you can't do that behavior, you need to do something else. We want to understand that our dogs make neural pathways, so when they learn behaviors, they become ingrained. We can create new habits over the top of them, but there'll always be those underlying behaviors there. When we're thinking about time, if you've had a dog that's practiced a behavior for a few years, it's going to take a lot more time for this forest to start regrowing and then this one to develop a new pathway. If you have a dog that is just starting to display reactivity behaviors, the gap in their forest is going to be a lot narrower than a dog that has practiced it for years. Every time you let one of these slip, again, we are going to be feeding in the old forest but not opening up a new pathway here. So that's why dog trainers say it's really important that we have consistency with our dogs. The more we allow the unwanted behaviors to continue, the bigger this forest gap becomes and the less that this one is forming.